Welcome to Ray Reads, a podcast where I discuss the books I am currently reading. For this episode of Ray Reads, I will be discussing the short novel Cannery Row by John Steinbeck. There are a lot of characters in this little book, but my favorite, hands down, has to be Mac. Mac is intelligent, charismatic, and he likes to play by his own rules. He is 48 years old, but I honestly thought he was much younger. Overall, Mac is a good-natured rascal. He may lie and cheat his way out of most situations, but he isn't truly a bad guy. The people of Cannery Row are well aware of his reputation. Lee and Doc go to great lengths to try to avoid getting swindled by Mac. Everyone on Cannery Row seems to accept Mac's bad habits as a quirk of his. The main story here is about Mac, and just about everyone else on Cannery Row wants to do something for Doc. Mac and the boys decide to throw Doc a party. The first party is a complete disaster. Later on, when Mac tries to apologize to Doc, he confesses that this is a problem he always runs into. Every time he tries to do something nice for someone else, something inevitably goes wrong. This is why he no longer has a relationship with his wife. This scene hit me pretty hard. It is a sad feeling when you believe that nothing you ever do is good enough. While I do feel bad for Mac, I also recognize that, with Doc's party at least, he is at fault. If you are throwing a party for someone, then it is your responsibility to maintain control over the situation. I was really hoping that Mac would learn from his mistake, but he does not. The only reason that the second party is a success is because Doc prepares for it. Doc has to lock up all of his valuable possessions and sort of baby-proof his place. He puts forth more effort toward ensuring the subsequent celebration is not another disaster. The first disaster cost him a shit ton of money, and he lost some of his favorite records. And Mac never makes this up to Doc. His heart is in the right place, but in trying to do something nice for Doc, Mac only brings him a world of trouble. Doc is the only person who can handle Mac. He cleverly predicts the various methods Mac will use to steal when Mac and the boys go out to collect frogs. Lee tries his best to stay a step ahead of Mac, but often fails. And then there are people like the captain, who gives Mac a puppy, people who completely fall for his sweet-talking. It's no wonder, then, that the boys all look up to Mac. He always knows precisely what to say to get whatever it is he wants. Even Doc admits that he admires Mac. He views Mac as a free spirit who cannot be enslaved by society's expectations. Doc is an extremely understanding and sympathetic character. He forgives Mac, knowing the other man won't change. Doc accepts the young boy Frankie, who everyone else considers nothing more than a troublemaker. He allows Frankie to act as his little assistant until the boy steals the clock for him. It saddens me when Doc leaves the poor boy in jail. The boy obviously needs more help. I wish that Doc hadn't gave up on Frankie. Doc is the most caring character in this story. Although he is unqualified to do so, Doc provides the best medical care he can to Cannery Row when the sickness breaks out. When people come to him for help, he simply cannot turn them away. Nevertheless, Doc leaves little Frankie in jail because he believes that the boy won't change and that there is nothing more he can do for him. And while the consensus is that Doc is a great guy, he is far from perfect. He often lies simply because he believes that most people prefer an easy lie over an unconventional truth. When Doc orders himself a beer milkshake, he informs the waitress that he needs it for medical reasons. This silly lie immediately wipes away the judgmental look on the waitress's face. Doc's biggest problem is that he is an alcoholic. He is constantly drinking, even when he definitely should not be. When the hitchhiker he picks up criticizes him for drinking and driving, Doc, without hesitation, throws out the hitchhiker. For as intelligent as Doc is, he is also so dumb when it comes to his addiction. Anyway, enough said about Doc. This story is rather lighthearted, despite all of the horrors unfolding in the background. There are 3 suicides mentioned throughout the book. The first suicide is by a man named Horace. After he pays off his debts to Lee by trading in the ownership of the building which becomes the Palace Flophouse, Horace promptly takes his own life. This man lost all hope of being able to survive in this economy. The second suicide is by William, the former bouncer at the Bear Flag restaurant. He is lonely and depressed, and there is even a moment when he feels obligated to kill himself just to make good on his own words. And then the third suicide is by Joey's dad. Joey talks to another kid who bullies him after the loss of his father. Joey's dad took his own life because he simply couldn't find a job and could not provide for his family. The tragic part is that the very next day after he commits suicide, someone came to offer him a job. These 3 suicides showcase the dire circumstances in Cannery Row, yet they are mere footnotes in the story. The greatest issue I have with Cannery Row is the depiction of women. After reading John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, I expected better. The women in this novel are merely abusive or dumb, and the men believe that life is better when women aren't around. The men are all entitled to their flaws, and nobody thinks any less of them for it. The women, however, are not afforded that same luxury. The women are presented as being silly and unreasonable for caring about curtains and little parties. Even the captain's wife, who is a politician, is viewed negatively. On a lighter note, alcoholic milkshakes are actually pretty good. No, I did not try it because of Doc. I've had alcoholic milkshakes long before I ever picked up this book. I have not had one with beer, but a lot of other flavored alcohols are perfectly delicious in a milkshake. Cannery Row is an interesting story, but I had wished for more from it. There is no significant character development, and I found that disappointing. After reading a couple of his books, I had expected better from John Steinbeck.